Hey, welcome y'all. Come on in the room. Come on in the room, as Tabitha Brown would say. Welcome, welcome. It's Get Free Fridays. I know y'all excited. I'm excited. Hey, Carlin. Hey, friend. Hey, People's Coalition. Hey, y'all. Really, really, really excited for this conversation today. Have some dope organizers we're going to be talking with. Come on in the room. And we're gonna get started. Hello, welcome, welcome. Just waiting on my fellow panelists and my co-host Kendrick to join us, and we'll get in here. In the meantime, you can let us know in the chat if you joined us for Freedom Fridays, Get Free Fridays before, or if this is your first time. Is this your first time for Get Free Fridays, or are you a vet and you've been here a couple times? Hey, Rosario. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody. While y'all are coming on, my name's Tia Oso. I'm a co-founder of Build Power. Really excited to be having this weekly summer school series where we're talking to dope organizers all across the country about the work that they're doing to help us all get free. Hey, Alice, I see you. All right, let me see if my folks is in the chat. I'm gonna get them up here on the stage with me. Live stage. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Good. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are y'all? Happy Friday, friends.
Happy Friday. So the really fun thing for all the participants is that both of our panelists today are named Alex, which I also think is super dope.
Good vibes.
It's a good vibes, right? It's a good vibe. And here comes Kendrick. Hey.
What up, Alex?
Hello, hello. Kendrick,
Hi.
you don't have to change your name to Alex for the day.
We're all named Alex today. I have a brother named Alex also, so I'm here in his honor as well.
Gang, gang.
I love that.
So while we're letting folks join, I want to say, thank you for working with us through last week's technical difficulties and, our little postponement. So that was our little, summer break for Freedom Summer School. But we're back. We're back in full effect with Get Free Fridays. I'm really excited to have dope organizers and really also holding it down, representing Chicago. We're on like a little streak now with the Chicago overrepresentation on the panelists. But that's okay. So if this is your first time joining us, my name is Tia Oso. I'm a co-founder of Build Power, currently serving as senior strategist with our initiative. And the work that we do is to use the power of folks with platforms and influence and artists and culture leaders to shine a bright light on the really dope organizing that's happening in the abolitionist lens and in the abolitionist movement across the country, and all the folks, between reform all the way across the revolution. We like to highlight the work that folks are doing to help us all get free. I see you, Mike, in the chat. And so our Freedom Summer School series is really talking about, we know so much is going on this year. So much is going on in our lives, both personally and at the structural level. And we want folks to feel encouraged. And so we want to highlight folks who are doing work on the ground every day that you can be both really proud of and also participate in to make a difference in what's happening both locally and nationally. So I'm going to turn it over to Kendrick. He's going to tap us in with our co-panelists on today. And we're going to have some, conversation, light conversation on a Friday afternoon, talking about the cops. Okay. Talk about 12 on today.
Talk
And
about
just,
12.
okay. And I'm also really excited because they're both like just two dope ass organizers as always. And yeah, I'll turn over to you, Kendrick.
Yeah. What up, y'all? We are back again with another Get Free Friday. What up, People's Coalition? Shout out. Thanks for tuning in week after, not last week. We appreciate you learning and building an abolitionist vision and future with all of us. We are still talking about the 94 crime bill because it's still relevant. The 1994 crime bill. And we'll focus today on policing. The 94 crime bill dramatically increased policing across the U.S. by pouring $19 billion. That's money. You remember whenever we're looking for the things that we need, they can't find the money, but $19 billion to expand policing across the country. And build infrastructure. This included adding police in schools. Therefore, the COPS program became the instigator of the school to prison pipeline, which many of us have heard, which dooms Black and brown youth from the start, marking them for the penitentiary before they can even reach high school. Before we begin to understand just how devastating the COPS program is, we must first acknowledge that policing itself is a poisonous system rooted in its origins as slave patrols. That's just facts. We just given the facts in the framing. Okay, here's your historical reference. Before the ending of enslavement in the United States, there were no formalized police forces until the slave patrols began to protect white people's property. This form of policing evolved into the system we know now. The history of policing in America was built on anti-Blackness, and now we see its impact on poor communities, brown people, queer people, trans people, houseless people, and those with mental health challenges. The whole system was rotten from the start. This is why we must defund, take all that money, them $19 billion and all, you know what I'm saying? We need monies. They just put 288 million into that 988 program, 288 million. Where's the 19 billion? You know what I'm saying? So this is why we need to continue to defund the police and implement community-based solutions that work for all of us. We are joined today by Alex and Alex. You know what I'm saying? What up, Alex and Alexandria? Alexandra, who will talk about the COPS program and the work being done to stop the criminalization of our communities, especially the people we care most about, our youth, right? So I would love for y'all to take a second after all that and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your work. We'll start with, let's see, Alexandra.
Cool. Hey y'all, Alexandra. Y'all can call me Alex or AG if it's gonna be easier for the remainder of this call. I use she and her pronouns. I'm originally from California, but I'm based in Chicago, and I'm a deputy campaigns director at the Action Center on Race and the Economy. Some folks know us as ACRE. My work specifically focuses on the relationship between policing and Wall Street. And so right now I'm working on a campaign against an audio surveillance technology called ShotSpotter, which is like the intersection of all the harms, all of the things.
I love that. And Alex?
I'm the other Alex. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a community organizer and also an abolitionist. I work on intersectional issues that impact students of color in the St. Kaiser School District. In the recent years, we have focused on abolishing the school to prison and deportation pipeline.
Simple and to the point. What's the impact of the COPS program on your life? Let's start with you, Alex. I love it. Like whoever responds is gonna be right. Right?
Yeah, so there's a lot. So the COPS program is funded by a federal government, provides funds to school districts across the country to have police in their schools, if you didn't know. And prior 2021, St. Kaiser School District had cops in their schools that benefited from this program, right? My family members, specifically my brother, his life was actually shaped at the age of 5 because of the funding of police in our schools. It literally pushed him into the school to prison and deportation pipeline. And he's not the only one, right? We've seen many people go through it. Growing up, I remember, I remember always being treated as a potential threat by my teachers and school staff. Being internalizing the way how easy I can end up into prison, right? Knowing that my peers felt the same exact way, especially students who are living with behavioral disabilities, right? And having our schools allowed us to accommodate to the presence of police in our schools and systems of policing, which isn't okay. We have encouraged a culture of policing that goes beyond just the school, beyond like police in our schools, right? It creates jobs and institutions that supports policing of our students. For example, like I kind of want to tell you a story about one of my friends who goes to South Salem High School here in Salem, Oregon. And this school is located in a historically white community. My friend who is an indigenous youth who is being targeted basically and harassed and stalked by the behavior specialist, Mr. D. One day, this behavior specialist told him because of his dark skin that he should think twice about hanging out with a group of brown kids. And then went on to say that the friends that he was hanging out with were gang members. And this is from South Salem High School. And then if we connect this to police in our schools, right, my friends and his peers would not have to be expelled or potentially arrested as well, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Alexandra?
Yeah, so we understand at Acre, like we understand the COPS program to be continuing the legacy of the 94 crime bill. And this is something that Democrats brag about. So it stands for Community Oriented Policing Services, which we are fundamentally against. Because at Acre, we understand that abolition is not just like the absence of police and surveillance, but the presence of all things that we need to thrive without them. And so, I think over my last few years, like doing work around policing and abolition in particular and thinking about defund, like this is budget work. And at the local level, we talk a lot about, defund the local police department. I think that we are in a moment now where we get to look towards like the other levers and systems that are enabling all of this funding at the local level. So we get to look towards the COPS program and the DOJ as these agencies, these entities that are funneling all of this money down to our local level. And I think the one thing I'd add to that is like we have been talking, like I know we have said in Chicago and other places, we think about budgets as moral documents. So if a budget is a moral document and it is laying out the priorities at the local level, like at the federal level, this is a fantastic example of where the federal priorities are at, not just their priorities, but where their moral priorities are at. And they have like placed those in the hands of police at every level. And I think the one thing I would also add around like the impact on my life and work, I think especially around my work, is like the COPS program is enabling policing, but it also is enabling like corporations to profit off of policing and incarceration. So you are gonna have like, yes, like local municipalities are going to be like applying for this funding, but they also are using that funding to pay somebody else to make the technology, to make the equipment that police then use to kill and harass us. And so I think that is like another really important piece in all of this.
Can you go in a little bit more detail on how particularly it exacerbated the school to prison pipeline?
Yeah, okay, so I didn't know if Alex wanted to answer that first, but I can.
No,
So,
that's a new yeah, okay,
yeah,
that's a new addition to the
yeah,
question.
Either
yeah.
one. Alex,
So
AG, both.
Yeah, y'all can talk. Yeah, both of y'all can talk at the same time if you want.
might get a little confusing, but
Yeah, it's
so
just
we
a
know
little
like
conversation.
the COPS program has given over $19 billion to local police, and $1 billion of that directly expanding like this, policing and surveillance in schools. And I think Alex was speaking to this earlier with just like the cops that we have in schools and school resource officers, right? They're cops. And I think that's like one aspect of it. I think it's important to name, like, there is some legislation that exists, the Counselors Not Criminalization Act coming out of Ayanna Pressley's office that is directly addressing this particular funding. And so, that act is looking to use those funds for counselors and nurses that are actually going to keep students safe, that are actually going to support the social safety net that young people need, as opposed to supporting cops. And I think the last thing I'd add here too is that there is like a connection to surveillance, and the way surveillance impacts young people. So I spoke earlier about ShotSpotter, the campaign that I'm working on, these like microphones that are primarily in Black and brown neighborhoods in Chicago. ShotSpotter microphones are in over 120 cities right now. And so, what that looks like when these microphones are in our neighborhoods, they're also near our schools. And so, there are countless stories and examples. Like, for example, the Chicago Police Department has admitted to using these ShotSpotter alerts from these microphones as a means of stopping and frisking people. And through other gang databases, one of them being the gang database that we have in Chicago, we know the rates at which young people are stopped by the police department. So we can make very strong connections between like the funding of surveillance tools through the COPS program, or even just the funding of our local police through the COPS program, and how these tools are then used to criminalize young people.
Absolutely. And something else I'm noticing, a little common practice is taking our language and, naming a program after it, because they know that we're demanding community resources and community control over those resources, to determine the wellness of our communities. And, they're like, you know what? I see you. That's great. We're going to name it community, right? And do the opposite. And we see that happening right now with, the earmark dollars to hire how many more cops and all of this stuff. And then claiming that in the same Biden package that was passed, that there are things that we need in there. And I think a point that you made earlier, Alexandra, that I thought was really good, and I'm even going to reverse it, is, yeah, we're not just looking for what we want to go away. We're talking about what we want to build as well. But we also want to make sure shit goes away. You know what I mean? Like we're not compromising on either side. We want the things to go away that are harming us, and we want to build the things that are healing and nurturing us. So those they ain't mutually exclusive. We got to have them both together. Alex, you actually got cops out of your school. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. How did that happen? Can you talk a little bit about that big achievement?
Yeah, sorry, someone was calling me. But
Popular.
yeah, so I want to start off with, like, first and foremost, we did this work out of love, right? For our peers, not only our peers, but our communities, our families, who have been impacted by the school to prison and deportation pipeline, and simply mass incarceration. We were successful because, we ensured the movement was not only impactful, but it was led by youth who were impacted by these issues, who were impacted by the criminal justice system, who were incarcerated, because we believe that those students have the answer, and how we can make our schools safer. And so this movement was always led by youth here at Luce in the St. Kaiser School District, and different youth in the community. We organized direct actions. We mobilized people to show up at our school board meetings. We pressured people in power, like school admin, the school superintendent, and school board members. And we did not stop educating our community on different layers of the school to prison deportation pipeline. Education is an important thing, especially when attempting to abolish these systems and build it up to be a better system for our students, to feel safer. But well, not only that, but getting police out of school was just the tip of the iceberg of what we needed, right? There's still more policing in our schools, even outside of our schools, right? That we have to focus on. But yeah.
Yeah, just like that.
Right. Every time Alex talk, I'll be like, you're like, yeah, so we did that and we about to do this at a
Yeah,
So
super
like
young
that.
age.
yeah, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, people always question like, why are we even like continue fighting? Like, right now, the issue we have is like people in the far right are coming towards us and saying like, why are you still fighting if you already got police out of our schools? Like, first, wait a minute, like, okay, we got that, great, but like we still have these other issues in our schools. We're lacking resources for our students. Our students are literally going through a mental health crisis, and during a pandemic. But y'all think about adding police more than adding resource for our students in mental health. Like that doesn't click, and it doesn't click right. I think we should, like, this is why it's important that we have like everyone here and other organizers around the world that are focusing on these issues that we all know that needs to be changed.
Yep. Gonna take a little. I mean, we're still in the same line, but just it's a little sad moment. I have to say, in mentioning the Uvalde shooting, the elementary in Uvalde, and how it highlighted how, ooh, how ineffectual is is what's I want to say some other words, but how ineffectual the police are. Um, Oof, man. Can y'all tell us, starting with Alexandra, some reflections on our current approach to school safety and, what the future of that should be, and what that can look like. But, just remembering, if people haven't, I encourage you maybe to read. I don't necessarily think you need to watch videos and stuff, but if you see any of these surveillance videos of the cops, and now it's, I think, up to 400, they're saying were there and that didn't take action. It gets wilder and wilder every time there's a new development of how much they allowed those kids to be murdered. So, and could have stopped it at any point from the beginning. So, whoo, it's a very deep, layered answer, but I will throw that over to you, Alexandra.
Yeah, well, I think theoretically they could have stopped it.
Right,
Hypothetically, they
right,
were supposed to.
right.
And I think that like their inaction is just like the example on display. The police do not keep us safe. And if police have the option to be comfortable, to be complicit, to put themselves first, rather than like protecting the people that they are paid to serve and protect, they're going to choose themselves every single time. And in addition to that, like using police as our first approach, like we're never going to get the sort of safety that our communities desire. Instead of actually like using that money to address root causes. And like you just said, up to like 400 officers that couldn't keep kids safe, and it was parents ready to run in there. I have two kids, 9 and 4, and the I it's no words. And I think like even if we even go back to the Parkland shooting, however many years ago. There are accounts of cops running from the scene. And so I think like us as the people who are always, can I cuss, on the shit end of things, on the short end of the stick, like who experience the harms, we've done the reflecting. We have done so much reflecting on safety and what we want and what we know we need to like not just make us feel safe, but to like actually create tangible safety for ourselves. We have to now ask, like, when are the decision makers, like, and those in power, going to do some serious reflection about like why their methods aren't working, and when they're actually going to move away from the like cowardice that is investing in policing and divesting from us? Because that's really what I think, you know, on a more like macro level, outside of just the like unfortunate examples of school shootings, like investing in policing is cowardice, because those in power, those with money, they don't, of course they don't they feel like they don't want to end up like us. If they take away, if they start funding things that are actually going to like support us and like have us thrive, I say us as I'm broke, I don't know about y'all, but I'm broke compared to some of these folks that we are fighting against. They don't want to give me money, they don't want me to live well, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want people in our communities to like truly live well, because they are scared that means they gonna have to live like us. I imagine that, you know what I mean? So I think that, like, again, like investing in policing is like overall just an example of cowardice.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Alex. I feel like when we were talking about, preparing for this conversation and like whether or not we should touch on what happened, what took place in Uvalde, it is number one, just like such a horrible tragedy that happened. And then also now that the surveillance tapes and things are being published, it also is really exposing not just the failure of those police, but the failure, like you're saying, of policing as a construct for safety that protects us and serves our communities. And then some of the things that the point of the People's Coalition for Safety and Freedom and the new legislation that's being written, and the reason why the 94 crime bill and legislation like it needs to be repealed, is that we also have all of these different policies that protect police and absolve them of responsibility, while they also are the recipients of billions, millions and billions of dollars of public monies and public resources, while then they tell us that they don't have the money for the things that our communities actually need. And so when we're talking about defund the police and abolish the police, and it's treated as though we're living in a fantasy world, or like pie in the sky. It's like, y'all are the ones living in a fantasy world, because the police, the cop in your mind that's keeping everybody safe and keeping you safe, right? In reality, these are human beings that we're giving the license to kill under the auspices that they're keeping all of us safe, and they hold this special place in society, when literally, actually, their individuals and their practices, right, in application are deeply flawed and are not keeping us safe at all. And actually, when it comes to being a Black and brown person, are actually a danger and a threat to your life in multiple ways, including abdicating their responsibility to protect even like little tiny baby children, like the young people at Uvalde.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is that those billions of dollars, that was 1994. A little while ago. I don't want it to be a while ago, but it was a very while ago. And
Not a very while.
it was a very while ago. And so that inflation, we've heard a lot about inflation this week, right? If we're talking about inflation, how much would $19 billion in 1994 be today, right? And so I'm over here looking at the celebration of $288 million going to a new phone line, 988, that's a crisis hotline for suicide prevention and such, which I think is extremely important. But $288 million is not 19 billion in 1994. It's not 19 billion today. It is so far from 19 billion, and you see the effect of 19 billion. You have to see the effect of billions more that were invested through 1994 crime bill that resulted in the prisons that are filled with our people today, more cops, these budgets that we're looking at, those budgets kept getting inflated because of those things, right? Now, imagine if they would have invested $19 billion in mental health care infrastructure. Now, what if we were looking at budgets today that were like, wow, we're spending 54% of our budget on community services. And that's a direct result of the bill that funded, you know what I'm saying? Where's our 19 bill? I just want to start a campaign called Go Get That Bag. And you know what I'm saying? And like, give us the money, you know what I'm saying? Because it directly translates to infrastructure, and that, you know, snowballs. And like you said, they're scared of what our communities look like. One, they're scared of our communities look like when they're healthy, and they're deathly afraid of living like us. So, which should say something, right? Then you might want to improve our quality of life, right? Our people's quality of life, our community's quality of life. Anyway, and let me take that back. Let us improve our quality of life. Give us our resources, and then let us improve our quality of life. Notice I said our resources because they belong to us, right? And as you were talking about earlier, Alexandra, you know, what these leaders, these politicians are doing, how do y'all think about, you know, how to respond to the moment when we're looking at kind of another 1994 crime bill version coming through the pipeline and trying to, you know, pour resources into hiring more police, and politicians really think the cops are the answer? Or, excuse me, let me take that back. They're saying that they think cops are the answer. What alternatives actually work that they should be funding? I mean, we already talked about them, but let's make it plain. Alex,
I can go. Yeah, I can go. So we know, you know, like policing was only worked to push Black and brown youth into the school to prison and deportation pipeline, right? We already know we need a different approach to safety in our schools. These approaches can be different, right? It can be from culturally and gender informing educators and mental health professionals and education in our schools, to restorative justice practices, increasing access to art, culture, education, and students in low-income neighborhoods. Like, these are the things that we are talking about. A lot of people like to say, like, oh, these groups are just talking about police and getting them out. But what are we doing? We are bringing up what we should do and what we need. Like, we're not only telling you that what we need to get out, but we already are telling you the solutions that the our communities are already talking about, that we lack of, and the communities of color and low income are facing nowadays. And now we need to remember that, like, great, we're focusing on those issues, but we need to remember about the students and those people who are not being taken care of, like we talked about. Like, they're being pushed around and pushed to the side as if there isn't nothing we can do about it, but there is, and we are sharing our experiences and stuff like that. And I just want to, like, say this last thing, but you know, a lot of people are telling us that we don't have also, like, stats, we don't have, you know, examples and stuff like that. But here, especially at Luz, we like to let the youth know that their experience, what they have gone through, our data, our facts, because it's an experience that you shouldn't have to experience, and it should be documented, how you are feeling and how you're being treated in your schools, from the police that you're facing, not only at schools but outside of your school, right?
Yeah. Alexandra, what? Okay, 19 bill. We get it tomorrow. We get that bag. What we investing in?
Well, I'm like, I don't know. Me. But I think,
Let me get this water, man.
you know what I'm saying? I already told you I got 2 kids. But I think examples from when we do outreach and we're like collecting petition signatures, especially around these like shot spotter microphones. I've like talked to folks. We've been standing right under a microphone in the neighborhood they live in. I'm like, do you know what that is? And they're like, I have no idea. And the city of Chicago is spending $9 million on things that people have no idea is even in their neighborhoods. They had no community input. They were not a part of the process. Police, like, we have no say in the way police patrol us, in the way that the city surveils and listens to us. Like, we have no say in that. But when we ask people, you know, so what would you spend $9 million on? Youth programs, jobs, housing, like potholes, like they are rattling it off because we live like this every day with knowing what we need, right? And I think it makes me think that, you know, people who get into power, I'm thinking about Lori Lightfoot in particular. People say, oh, we got a Black lesbian mayor. She's a cop. She's not worried about us. She is worried about herself. And I like, they get into these positions of power because they want the power, because they feel like they have the best interest for communities. But when we do like people's budget activities, when you ask people, when you give people, here's 100 pennies, put your pennies where you want things to be spent, every single time, overwhelmingly, the police department, they got the least amount of pennies. It's all pennies in education. It's all pennies in jobs and all of these other things. We know, like, we know we need. They're just, again, like, if we had the power to determine how our budgets are spent from the local to the federal level, corporations would go out of business. The United States as it is would be drastically different. And I think that is like the biggest fear that they have, is if we actually had the like true democratic power over how we would want. Could you imagine if we all had $19 billion to decide to make a decision about, you know what I'm saying? Like, the United States would go out of business.
I love that. That reminds me of, I always talk about this quote from Malika Jabali. She said, meeting the material needs of Black people would actually upend capitalism. So we are placated with overrepresentation instead. And so they're like, oh, look, Lori Lightfoot, you know what I'm saying? They're like, hey, here's a Black person, Black face in a high place. Here's an indigenous place. Oh, look, first indigenous this, first blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
That should satisfy y'all for a while.
Right.
But forget about them things, the material needs that y'all were talking about, and them real demands that y'all been asking for decades, if not centuries.
Decades. Exactly. And then they want us to, you know, spend a lot of time celebrating and, you know, these representative victories. And then, you know, that person's going to get around to the things that you say that you're demanding. And then when they don't, they're like, well, you know, they were Black. How? Are you sure that this is what Black and brown people wanted? Because this Black and brown leader is not delivering for you. And we're talking about decades. We're talking about centuries. We're talking about systems. We're not talking about individual people, not putting it on their shoulder. We're saying the system is the thing that needs to change. So in the comments, Alex G, everybody wants you to run for office. All right. So
they don't want me to run for office. They're
like, why she not the mayor? What's going on? And could you get time for one more question?
Yep. And I love that reminded me of James Baldwin. He said, how long do you want me to wait for your progress?
Progress.
I love that interview. How can people, particularly the youth, get involved? What can we do? How are we plugging in? What's up, Alex?
Yeah. So there's different ways, right? But the best way to do is go alongside with all the youth who are in your community, and meet together and identify like the issues that you are seeing in your school district, seeing in your communities, right? And then that's when you go and you pinpoint who are these people in power, right? Who's on your school board, who's the admin in your school board, who's your superintendent, and see where they stand on these issues, and identify them, right? And then fight fight with alongside with community. Make sure that those who are affected by those issues are there. Um, Direct actions end up helping as well. Showing and like I said, I brought up earlier, education is a huge thing that will end up helping you fight and win those victories, right? Educating your community about the issues you are fighting and identifying them um, will help you lead to those victories, right? I also put in the chat, there's ways you can get involved with us, right? We have like online petitions, we have all these issues that we're posting. We do a lot of education in our posts. You can follow us here at Loose Youth on Instagram or on Facebook as well, Latinos Unidos Siempre, or on Twitter. We just got Twitter at Loose Salem.
Let's go. And Alexandra?
Yeah, I think so. I'm 30. I'm not, I don't know if I'm young people at 31. I don't think I'm young people anymore. So I trust everything that Alex just named. But I do want to give a shout out to the young people in Chicago at Good Kids Mad City. They are putting together, they have put together a complete plan and proposal for violence prevention and violence interruption in the city. It's very strong. It's called the Peace Book. And that is all the work of young people. And I think it's a testament to young people know what we need. They know what we need. They know what we want. And I mean, it's such a strong proposal that the city has unfortunately been breaking pieces off of their proposal and co-opting it for themselves. It is unfortunate, very unfortunate. And, we're working on getting the Peace Book as it stands, from young people, instituted as something solid and concrete in the city. But yeah, I am taking the word of young people as to what we should be doing next.
I want to say one last thing also. It's important to, when especially when we're kind of looking and identifying these issues, there's already some works already around where you're staying at who are doing this work, right? So it's easy enough to get involved. And that's probably the best way. It's always better to work together than working in individual groups, right? It's a lot better to be non-individualist and to be more community work and with your community and fight against those issues.
Absolutely. Look at us. Bright ass future. You feel me?
Okay.
So Tia, where we at?
So where we're at is, number one, thank you again to Alex, okay? Our amazing panelists on today. Fire discussion, lots of love in the chat for everybody. Everybody make sure to share this video. It will be on the @Build Power series tab, so you can share the recording and spread the knowledge and spread the wealth. Also make sure to follow People's Coalition at PPLS_coalition. There on their link in bio, you can see the dozens of organizations all across the country that are working towards the people's process to repeal and replace the 1994 crime bill. And then join us next week, where Kendrick will not be our co-host. Not because we don't love Kendrick, but because we're going to be talking about some specific aspects of the 1994 crime bill, particularly the Violence Against Women Act. And so we're going to let a woman shine the light also in that discussion, of that conversation. And yeah, that's it. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you, Kendrick. And
Love you, Tia.
Keep the faith, keep the fight. Okay, what did Alex from Blues tell us? You got to fight. All right, and we know that. But listen, we're gonna follow what the youth say and let that fire us up to keep on going. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for joining us for Get Free Friday. All right, have a great rest of your day and weekend. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye. Thank y'all.